This was late summer when the wisteria is basically just totally overgrown. And so I'm just kind of showing you areas I'm going to chop. And really for this part, you're just trying to get rid of all the green whippy shoots because the blooms are going to grow on wood. Now, some of these green shoots might turn into wood over winter and you can get some small blooms. But the main point of your summer prune is just to get the wisteria under control so that you can actually kind of like see it without it being a big blob. And now this was also after a hurricane, so it got blown down, as you saw right there. But yeah, you can see it's taking over that lamppost. And so when people ask about the maintenance, it's mostly in the pruning. You don't really have to water your wisteria or anything. I mean, I do a little bit. Now this was after the prune. As you can see, all that growth on the right is gone. Lamppost, you can finally see it again. I'm going to say I kind of over pruned this year, but really it's to set myself up for success in subsequent years. Because the more of the like base structure that I can see right now, the better I can shape it for the future without, having like a bowl of spaghetti to go through, right? So the name of the game really is to get as few lanes or runners as possible and to get those runners big and juicy, big and thick, because they will create, many forks in the road, which can create more forks, which can create more. It's multiplicative, right? And basically you want your core structure to be the thickest and the strongest. That way it can support the weight of, look at how many branches you have, right? Once those things are a 1/4 inch thick, you're talking basically tons. So the next goal is to get a good structure. And then here is in the winter time, or this was after winter actually. Now that it's starting to kind of bloom or get its buds forming. And then, in a couple weeks, these are all going to be where the bonnets form. And yeah, we did get a couple freezes this year in Houston, which I think is good for the wisteria because what it does is it gets rid of all the green growth. And yeah, it just allows you to see your structure even more. So the winter prune is where you give it its final shape. So summer is like a maintenance prune, and then winter is like the final form, to give it like the best structure possible. I'm clipping this piece because look at how many branches that thing could potentially create. My goal is to get this thing under control and create the least amount of, let's call it highways, right? So yeah, now I have that thing under control where it's just one long growth and I'm going to work with that. Here, there's a fork in the road and one branch is just going straight down. Now, obviously I could support that with something and that's fine. It'll do its twists and turns. But what I'm trying to do is basically have upward growth. This plant is going to go for a very long time, centuries perhaps. So I want all my growth to try and go upward, not downward. The more it can self-support itself, the better. We have an example of where I'm clipping it is to prevent that downward floppiness, right? If I clip it there, I'm essentially strengthening the portion that is going up. Here, the thicker part that is going downward, I am going to put that, I'm going to brace it. So I want the thicker part that's going to give you better blooms. I'm getting rid of one of the extra forks in the road, so to speak. Because like I said, we want just to limit the amount of highways we have. Here we have that downward whippy growth that I want to remove. And I'm cutting just past a node. That way the node can serve as my sippy straw and collect energy for the end of that point and continue to strengthen. So here we have about 3 runners that are twisting together. And, sometimes it's too difficult to untangle them. So I just make a cut. I am always trying to get rid of twists as much as possible. I keep some, but when it's 3 runners like this twisted together, as those runners gain girth, they're going to rub together. They might fuse, but the fuse is of poor quality. And so everything past that fusion point might suffer. So my goal, once again, is just to keep everything under control, no twists. That way I can take the pieces I want and place them how I want. Later on down the line, when I have the structure I want, it can do all the twists and turns and we'll deal with the problem then. You'll see my loppers at the bottom here, and to the left of that, you will see 3 nodes. 1, 2, 3. And so this just goes to show how one runner will create so many extra lanes that I don't want. I just want my one runner to get longer, thicker, and then I'll figure it out from there. And this just shows the tangled mess, all the leaves going into the ground. And if some of those runners go in the ground, they'll just pop up with a new plant. And I'm good. This is actually more than 1 wisteria right here. It's about 3 or 4. And I do not need more. I want to work with the ones that I already have. And this is the final result. Late summer basically heading into fall, what the structure actually looks like. I still have some green because I want that energy to flow through the structure, but not so much. It looks like something I can actually handle. And then in the wintertime, all of those green leaves will fall. And then I will just do a small light prune for its final shape. Now this is in the winter time when all the leaves are gone, and like you are able to really see now the entire structure with all this crazy green growth. So I really like it when it's like this because that's when you get to make like the best decisions for how you want this thing to actually look in the end. One of the best pieces of advice I got from a tree cutter guy, so he just knew his trees, was he said that trees are made up of thousands, maybe millions, of fibers. And he said, think of them like sippy straws. So that is how a tree transfers energies. So I posted this picture of a bucket of straws so you could understand how energy flows through a plant. And I want you to think of each node, leaf node that is, as someone sipping on a straw. Leaves collect energy from the sun and send it down to the root so that the root can grow and create a larger structure. This process is known as photosynthesis. The roots drink water and send that to the leaves to nourish the leaves, which are essentially solar panels. You will have to use your imagination a little bit, but we're going to consider each leaf node as someone sipping on a straw to get water, right? So at the top we have, let's say, 100 people sipping through the straw. What do you think the person on the very right, the very end, do you think there's going to be any water for him? I don't think so, because there's 99 other people that are sipping on that juice. Then in the middle, we have one sippy straw at the end. And we think about it as, is there enough pressure for that guy to sip through that 20-foot straw? I don't think so. So the bottom one for the Wisteria is the one that I try to go for, where person number one is putting some energy to bring to person number two, and so on and so forth. So I do not count buds. If you watch other Wisteria pruning videos, they'll tell you to count back buds. But I think that's for colder environments. Because here in Houston, I mean, basically, our winters are so short that once the thing loses leaves, there's really no time to be counting. I don't know. That just seems like a lot of work. I have an eye for how energy flows through the structure, and I use my best judgment. But to recap on everything we've kind of gone through, late summer, August 5th, like 15th through September 15th, we do a maintenance prune. Number one, we get rid of all the whippy green growth, only keep a few runners that you intend on creating as new vines. Step two, get rid of all the forks in the road. If you have a nice wooden runner that is, let's say, 20 feet long, you do not want it splitting at one station into 5 new shoots, and then of those 5 new shoots, each one multiplying even more. Think of those extra shoots as taking energy from your original 20-foot vine. Your thick original vine is where you want energy to be directed to. Step 3, cut back a lot of the leaves. Droopy leaves, leaves that are shaded out. I would say get rid of 2/3 of all the leaves. You want a leaf node at the end of every vine so that you know energy is going to the very tip of the vine. Leaves give and use energy, but you do not want hundreds of leaves because they are also using up energy just as much as producing it. Just like every 2 feet or so, you'll have a leaf node. Then in the winter time, in Houston, that would be January, that's where you can really shape your structure. This pruning, this is the fun one because, yeah, it's not overgrown. There should be no leaves on the structure. And, yeah, you just give it its final shape. You can identify areas you want to shorten and concentrate more energy into. But, yeah, this is where you can maybe watch the crazy English YouTubers and they're clipping back to 3 buds and all that jazz. But I don't do that.